Now then, one of the UK's largest home builders, Taylor Wimpey, has agreed to drop contract terms which lock leaseholders into ground rents that double every 10 years. The property developer is the latest to agree to the changes following an investigation by the competition watchdog. OK, so what does all this mean? Well, 5 Live Money's Leanna Bryan has joined us with the details. I wonder if you could just explain it to us. What's happened?
Yeah, I guess the first thing I kind of want to explain, and I'm really sorry if I'm telling you something that you already know, but, the difference between a leaseholder, and a freeholder. And this is kind of what it all comes down to. So obviously with a leasehold, you don't own the house or the flat. All you have is the use to own the use of the property. So if you want to do any work or changes to the home, you have to get permission. And another problem with a leasehold is you can also be charged ground rent, and sometimes these charges are very expensive and they can increase. So in this case, the house builder Taylor Wimpey was charging its leaseholders ground rents that doubled every 10 years. Now, Taylor Wimpey has voluntarily given formal commitments to the CMA that it will remove terms from leasehold contracts that have caused these ground rents to double in price. So this means leaseholders' ground rents will remain at the amount charged when they first bought their home, and they're not going to increase over time anymore.
What led to the investigation in the first place? What triggered it?
So the Competitions and Markets Authority has actually been looking into this ground rent cost increases for a while now. So actually, if we go back to September 2020, the CMA launched enforcement actions against 4 housing developers. So that's Countryside, Taylor Wimpey, Barrett Developments and Persimmon Homes. Then in March this year, the CMA ordered Taylor Wimpey and Countryside Properties to remove these terms in their contracts. And Countryside said in September it will voluntarily remove these terms. And Persimmon also agreed at the time to offer leaseholders the opportunity to buy the freehold of the property at a discounted price and to make repayments, and to some homeowners who bought their freehold. And in the mix of all this as well, some of these leasehold contracts were actually sold on to investment companies. So that brought the insurance group Aviva into it, because they bought up freehold contracts from developers. And Aviva now, they agreed in June to remove ground rent terms that were considered unfair and to repay homeowners whose rents doubled after the CMA's investigation. So out of the 4 house builders, the CMA launched enforcement action against since, back in September 2020, only the investigation into Barrett Developments is ongoing, and also investigations into 2 investment groups are ongoing too.
OK, so let me get this straight, Leanna. So they are going to repay, could I call it the overpayments, I suppose?
Yes.
Is that effective immediately? What should people affected by this be expecting?
Yeah, it is going to be effective immediately. And I mean, essentially what we're expecting is that these leaseholders are going to get their money back, that there isn't going to be increases. But we're also going to be expecting more developers and investment companies to possibly voluntarily agree to do the same, because the CMA came out today and said other developers and freehold investors should do the right thing now for homeowners and remove these from their contracts. So it's likely we're going to see more on this soon.
OK, Leanna Byrne, thank you very much for that. 5 Live Money's correspondent. Thank you for that. Well, Joe Darbyshire had a doubling of ground rent with another developer, Taylor Wimpey, and is also the co-founder of the National Leasehold Campaign. Hello, Joe.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. First off, I just want to get your reaction to what's happened.
Oh, I'm delighted. I've been campaigning against these doubling ground rents for nearly 5 years now. So it finally feels like at last Taylor Wimpey have been forced to do the right thing.
What has it meant to you living with these terms? How has it affected you?
When we first found out, which was in summer 2016, we were looking at a cost to buy the freehold with a doubling ground rent of £30,000 to £40,000. So the first reaction was just feeling sick, really. Having been told by the salesperson at the time we bought the property that we could buy it any time for £5,000. They then sold it less than 2 years later to an offshore investment company, and the price skyrocketed. And that critical piece of information was withheld. So angry, sick, where are we going to find £30,000 to £40,000 to get out of this mess from? And then it's just been, time away from my family, campaigning for the last 5 years. So it does feel like a victory today, even though it's been a long time coming.
Do you know what? I'm still quite staggered by the figures you've just quoted. So from £5,000 being the figure you were told you could buy that out to between 30 and 40,000. What reason did they give you for that?
The freeholder would say that that's the market value for a doubling ground rent.
Goodness
Yeah.
me. Okay, so do you understand what happens next then?
Yes. If Taylor Wimpey still own the freehold, then it's fairly straightforward. There's going to be a little bit of work over the next few months while Taylor Wimpey make offers to the various freeholders that they've sold these leases onto, and that will be the majority, in my view. Mine was certainly one of them, and lots of the people that have joined our campaign are in the same position. So, I just hope that the freeholders play nicely and accept Taylor Wimpey's offer, and then there'll be lots of people who can get a refund on the ground rent because it will revert back to a flat ground rent, and it will make the cost of buying the freehold significantly cheaper for those people in houses, or the cost of extending the lease significantly cheaper for those that are in flats.
Very quickly, Jo, would you go down the leasehold route again?
Never, ever buy another leasehold property.
Okay. Well, ending the year on some good news, let's put it that way. But Jo Darbyshire, thank you very much for your time, and good luck with the campaign coming to fruition later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we have had a statement from Taylor Wimpey. The Chief Executive, Pete Redfern, has said that Taylor Wimpey has always sought to do the right thing by its customers, shareholders and other stakeholders, and we are pleased that today's voluntary undertakings will draw this issue to a full close within our original financial provision. Tony.